Alrighty, so welcome everyone to today's cooking demo. We are making a tabbouleh salad, and this is a Lebanese dish that incorporates parsley and other vegetables into a wonderful dish that you can serve as an appetizer, as a main course. It is refreshing, it is very cooling on the body, and it has a lot of beneficial properties. Let's talk about that. So parsley, so I have two different types. I have the curly parsley, and then I have the Italian parsley. This herb is very rich in antioxidants and nutrients that your body needs so antioxidants for combating free radicals in your body. So it may serve a anti-cancer, cancer prevention property, but it also has other vitamins and minerals in it that are really important for digestion, for maintaining overall immune balance. So it's really cool. Next, if you are using mint, mint also has some wonderful properties. It's great for your digestive tract, and it's rich in antioxidants. So anything like a leafy vegetable that has really potent flavors, is usually going to have some really cool bioflavonoids, right? Okay, let me make sure there's no one else trying to sign in. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is, if you are using bulgur wheat is a wheat berry that's been already parboiled, and I'm using this whole grain, right? I'm going to bring it up close to the camera. Okay, it's already been partially cooked. So there's two different methods that you can use. All right, the more typical Lebanese method is that you're going to soak this in olive oil and lemon juice marinade, and it's for about 15 minutes, and it's going to expand and absorb that. And it's okay to do that because it's already been partially cooked. Now, if you have one that's really fibrous, so this one that I have from, this is Bob's Red Mill bulgur. It's really high in fiber, right? That one, I would probably recommend boiling a little bit of water. So whatever amount of bulgur you're using, so if you're using a quarter cup, double the amount, so half cup of water, bring it to a boil, and just once it's to a boil, dump the bulgur wheat in, cover it, and let it sit for 15 minutes. And that's if it has a lot of fiber. Otherwise, you might get a really chewy, maybe even crunchy bulgur experience. So tonight I'm going to do the soaking method. I typically, I'm just letting you forewarning, I typically do the boiling water method, and immediately when you dump the bulgur in, you just turn off the heat, and you just let it soak. The bulgur is going to soak up all of that moisture, and then you can use the marinade as your dressing. All right, so I'm going to do a quarter cup of bulgur. I'm going to get that starting on the soak. You can do the boiling method, so it'd be 2 cups of not 2 cups, a half cup of boiling water, and then you add your bulgur wheat, a quarter cup to it, and then it will expand. So that quarter cup is not going to stay a quarter cup. It's going to be more like anywhere between half cup to 3 quarters of a cup. All right, let's make our marinade. So if you're doing the soaking method, you're going to need a marinade to put your bulgur wheat in. So let me get a bowl. So it's going to be a 1/3 cup of our wonderful olive oil. Okay, I'm using the Whole Foods brands. So 1/3 cup, and you're probably like, why are you using so much olive oil? You can vary this amount. You can use less, especially if you are looking to watch your calories, and then increase the amount of lemon juice. So that is one option. The style of the marinade is it's going to accumulate at the bottom most likely, so you're not going to get all of this olive oil into your system. It's enough to coat it, but there's not all of it's going to go into your food. It's going to soak at the bottom. Okay, so you're going to use anywhere between 3 tablespoons to, I would say, even a half cup of lemon juice, depending on what your ratio is going to be for your dressing, aka marinade. Right? I like lemon, so if you want something that's more subtle, I recommend 3 tablespoons. Maybe if acid really upsets your stomach, maybe 2. Okay, so that way it'll be very subtle. If you like really potent flavor, like go all out. This is a wonderful, wonderful way to get that wonderful vitamin C lemon flavor with the parsley. So I'm going to juice that real quickly. If you are doing the boiling method, your water needs to come to a boil, add the bulgur wheat, let it soak for 15 minutes. You'll make the marinade and you can set it aside and then add the bulgur wheat later and the marinade together. So let me get this juice. Any questions so far? Let's see. I'm lost. Can you quickly review what we need to have done already? Okay, so if you're following along, I'm starting off with just doing the bulgur wheat, okay? And we are soaking. I have some stuff that's pre-chopped just for time's sake. So all you're doing right now is you're getting your bulgur ready. So there's two different methods. One is to do a soak, and that's more of the like traditional Lebanese style. So that would be you put the olive oil and the lemon juice together and you pour it onto your bulgur wheat and let the bulgur wheat soak up that moisture because it is partially cooked. Now, the other method is to bring a half cup of water to a boil and then add the bulgur wheat to there and let it soak that way. Does that explain? Let's see. You might want to suggest to those new to the Zoom that they use active speaker and not gallery view. Oh yes, if you are joining the call and you are new, if you click on the upper right-hand corner, you can enter the full screen view and you'll see a bigger image of what's going on during the cooking demo, okay? All right, so I have just got done juicing a lemon, and let's see how much lemon juice we have. All right, so we got juice. I'm using an 1/8 cup, measuring cup. This is 2 tablespoons. And you're going to mix that in with your olive oil. So that's 1. So that's 4 tablespoons. I'm using a little bit more than 4 tablespoons. And you're going to give that a quick stir and then add it to your bulgur wheat if you are doing the soaking method. Okay, so there's the bulgur wheat. And this is the dressing. And you're just going to add that in and we're going to let that soak for 15 minutes. And you want to stir it around a little bit so that way all that olive oil and lemon juice has time to come in contact with the bulgur wheat. Okay, and you can set that aside. If you are doing gluten-free today, your option is going to be quinoa. I'm using a black grain quinoa. You're going to bring some water to a boil, and ironically, it's usually twice the amount of water to quinoa. I'm going to use the same ratio. So it's going to be 1/4 cup of quinoa to about a 1/2 cup of water. You would want to typically wash your quinoa in advance. It's okay if you did not. And then you're going to bring that to a boil. Oh, and this just decided to go out. Yeah, let's turn it around. All right, I'm back. All right, so you're going to add the quinoa to the water. You're going to bring it to a boil. And then once that's to a boil, let it simmer for about, I would say 5 to 8 minutes, and the quinoa will expand and absorb that water. So it doesn't have to soak though. So with the marinade. So quinoa, once it's done, strain it, wash it, and then put it into the salad. So I'm gonna have that going on right now on the stove over here for those who are doing the gluten-free option. Okay, so I'm gonna set the bulgur wheat aside. And let's talk about our veggies. So we have parsley. This is the one that's going to be the most time consuming because you need to chop it to a very, very, very fine consistency. So I'm just going to show right here. This is how fine, it's like crumbly, right? You want to get at least 2 cups of chopped parsley. Now, I have just been alternating between the Italian parsley and the regular curly parsley. Let's go over how to cut these. Okay, first you choose them in the store. You want to soak them in some water to get the dirt off, right? Because the dirt's gonna fall to the bottom where the plant's gonna hover at the top of the surface, right? Then you wanna dry your parsley out thoroughly because that moisture is really gonna add in additional work for you when you go into chopping these, right? We want it to be fairly dry. You need to have a very firm surface on which you will chop your parsley. And the reason why is you don't want rebound, right? With these thin ones, let me show you. With these thin chopping boards, you might get a little bit more rebound, and that's gonna make your job in chopping this very challenging. You'll be exhausted by the end. Okay, next, knife skills. You definitely want to go in with a very sharp knife. Otherwise, you're going to be putting in a lot of effort just to get a small amount of parsley chopped. So sharpen your knives if you haven't done so already. This will be very important. All right. Let's see. The question was, how much olive oil and lemon juice do we soak the bulgur in? And how much bulgur do we put in? So it was 1/3 cup olive oil, and then you can use anywhere between 2 tablespoons to, I would say, a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. And then how much bulgur wheat? A 1/4 cup of bulgur wheat, and that's going to expand. It's going to start soaking up the oil and the lemon juice. All right, let's go over how to chop. So this is, it's come into a bundle, and I kept it like that for a purpose because we're going to chop right here. So that way we take out most of the stems and we leave this nice leafy greens on top, right? Now the stems you can save, and you don't have to. You can leave the stems in and chop them up. It'll be fine. It's going to change the texture of the tabbouleh when you get the final product. All right, so knife skills. You want to hold near the base of the knife, kind of pinch it, okay? And then the other fingers wrap around. So that way you are using your arm, right, with more stable control. When we hold here at the handle, kind of like a handshake, that has a purpose, but we get more wrist involvement, and then that will tire us out. You'll start to feel more tired here, okay? So we want to pinch here, fingers go around, and then that way we can use more control when we chop. All right, so I'm going to cut this base of the stems off. And more people are adding on. Hold on, let me add them. Okay, base of the stems chopped off. You can put this in a stock pot. You can put it in a compost bin, anything like that, right? If you don't want to feel like you waste it. Now, when you start to chop it, the initial one that you're going to do is you want to break up the bouquet a little bit. So you're just going to do an initial rough chop, just breaking it up. Okay, and then after you have that done, what you're going to do next, let me break it up a little bit more. Okay, you're going to do this in small batches. Put a batch together, and then this is when your wonderful chopping skills are going to come in handy. Okay, 2 ways. If you're a little unsteady with your hands, put fingers onto the tip, right, to stabilize it, and then you're just going fast through. And you're almost like a machine, right? Going up and down until you have a nice chopped product. And you can use the base of your hand as well. I would go at different angles just so that way you can break up any of those little stems. So this is going to take anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes to get the amount of chopped parsley for it. So I'm showing one way of chopping, and then I'll show another here in a second. Okay. So now we have a finely chopped, sorry, someone keeps trying to add it. So I could probably go a little bit more, right? It's not as crumbly as it could be. So you can keep going. I want to show the other type of chopping method. So that's one way. The other way. So we pinch, and then you're going to actively lift up. And that one's going to make a little bit more noise, but it takes less time, okay? And that actually makes it really, 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 really fine. Did everyone get a chance to see that? Everyone good with that? So it's really fast. And that gets it right where we want it on the consistency. So, all right, you will need at least 2 cups of chopped parsley for your salad. You can go with more, and that'll be just lovely. Let's look at the Italian parsley real fast. So Italian parsley, it's going to have a little bit longer stem, right, than what you'll see in the grocery store. And you still want to cut off right there, so that way you have less stems. But like, look at this, right? You may want to just pull off the leaves. That may be easier for you than having to do a lot of chopping. Okay. So you can use either type of parsley. You can use all curly. You can use all Italian. It's up to you. I'm using half and half just because I like the different flavors that each one of them imparts. So the curly parsley is going to have a nice texture, right? And the Italian parsley is going to have a little bit more potent flavor, in my opinion. You know, depending on the grower and where you're at, it's going to be different. Okay, I'm going to finish this up, and then we're going to go to the mint. It will take a while to get through. All of your parsley. But it is worth it. Okay, so next step will be, if you like mint, you are going to take the mint off of the stems, and you can discard the mint stems. You just want the leaves. The mint is optional. I know some people, they don't like it at all. I am someone who absolutely adores it, so we're adding it in for this demo. Just one more second, and then we'll move on. Now, the curly parsley is going to be easier to chop than the Italian parsley. It'll go by much faster, so if you're short on time and you're looking to do this in the future, I would probably just stick with the curly parsley. But if you want a little bit more potent flavor, I would use a mix of the two. Okay, we're going to add that. So keep chopping while I move on to the other stuff, because I'm going to talk about the other ingredients. You want to get to 2 cups of finely chopped parsley if you are doing this. Next, mint. Okay, so you want to get about 1/4 cup of chopped mint. So that's going to take a little bit more than what you see here, right? Because there's a lot of air. So you're going to place your mint onto your chopping board, and mint's going to go by fairly quickly when you chop it. So do a rough chop similarly to the parsley that you did earlier. And then go into your finely chopped technique. And you still want to change up the angles every now and then, so that way you can you can add more than 1/4 cup if you like. You can add less. It's up to you. And whatever mint you don't use, you can add it to iced tea. You can use them in a variety of different dishes. You can add it to other salads. I'm keeping an eye on the quinoa right now. The bulgur wheat, if you are doing the soak method, it's just going to be soaking. If you are doing the boil, you brought it, it's probably up to a boil by now. And you just add the bulgur wheat, turn off the heat, just let it soak. Let's see if there's any questions. Do you ever use scissors? Kelly asked, do you ever use scissors? So I would imagine you can. Oh, another thing too. You know those hand choppers, right? You might want to use that, right? But I know there's going to be like a Lebanese chef out there who's going to be like, "What are you doing to my salad? You should be using a knife, right? you can't use a chopper, right?" I would yeah, use what works best for you. Okay, so that mint is nicely chopped now. Woo! You're getting your workout in, right? If you're following along, you're getting your workout in. Okay, let's see if I got a quarter cup. A little bit more. What I love about the different dishes that we do with our cooking demos is that it really brings in different aspects of cooking. So like for instance, tonight's theme is knife skills, right? Last cooking demo when we did the chicken, it was more about amplifying flavor, right? With different types of herbs. So this is definitely a little bit of technique. So I'm going to add a little bit more mint and then we will move on. Once again, mint is optional. If you do not want to use it, you do not have to. Yeah, this should be fairly close. Okay, so the next ingredient is going to be your onion. Now you have different options on your onion, and if you're following along with the recipe, it's going to say to use a scallion, green onion, right? And those are going to have a very, very balanced flavor. So you can use that. If you're someone who doesn't like onion, leave it out, right? Some people have digestive trouble and onion does not agree with them. Now, if you want something really potent, use a red onion. It's not going to add sweetness or anything like that. It's going to add that potentness, and it goes really well with the parsley and the mint. So there are some options. And you can use a combination of red onion and green onion, and that's what I'm going to do tonight because I love onion. You do what is best for your household, though. So if you have family members that don't like onion, leave it out. Okay, so I'm going to show you the mint here in a second, and we'll move on. All right, so here's the mint. See how it's crumbly? And it smells wonderful, right? And you are going to get a little bit messy, okay? So that's about a quarter cup. All right, so for your green onion, you would want to wash it. Now I have like parsley all over it from the chopping board. You want to peel off any parts that are gross, right? And then you're going to chop off the little root tips. But if you make vegetable stock, you want to keep those, right? Chop that off, just put it in a freezer bag, put it in the fridge or freezer, and let yourself accumulate your veggie scraps, and then use that, and it will make a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stock that you can use in other dishes. All right, so the recipe calls for only 2 of these. So it's very, very mild on the onion. I would say that's the low end for the onion. You can go all the way up to a whole entire bundle of the onions that you buy at the store. So cut off the root tips, and you want to peel off any parts that don't look agreeable to you. And then if you see any of these green parts that are just kind of like, you know, they look bad, take them off. And then you want to chop off the tips of the green, just a little bit. Okay, So next, you're going to cut in the midsection of the onion, and then you're going to double it up. And then you're going to finely chop your onion. See if we have any more questions. No, so far, finely chop. Now, if you wanted to use red onion, you could do that. You just need to make sure that you get it nice and finely chopped. You don't want big chunks of red onion in your tabbouleh. It should blend well, right? It's kind of like, think of it as making a chorus in a musical number, right? You want all the flavors to blend. You don't want one to stick out too much. So red onion would be like, okay, instead of using, your standard orchestral bass, you're using an electrical bass guitar, right? It still has that, but you still want it to blend with your ensemble. This is one where I actually, I love garlic, but I would be cautious with adding garlic to this. The reason why is it may not blend as well as we think. You can try it, you can experiment with it. Okay, once your onion is decently chopped, you're gonna add that to a bowl. Let's move on to our next ingredients. So far we have parsley. The 2 cups of parsley. We have about 1/4 cup of finely chopped mint. We have anywhere between 2 onions to one of those little bundles of onions. And I would say 1/4 cup-ish at the high end. All right. Tomatoes, vine ripe tomato. We want to get the seed, the really juicy seed packet part, we want to get that removed, right? You don't want that going into your salad, otherwise you're going to have a really runny salad. So first thing, slice off the top, cut it in half, then 1/4 it. Okay. So this part here is what we want to discard, right? We want to keep the skin part and the pulp. And we're going to finely chop that. So I'm going to de-seed this. And you want to have 2 tomatoes, finely chopped. Squeeze out all the seeds. If you're boiling your quinoa or simmering your quinoa, keep an eye on it. Okay, once you see the little stringy things, you take it off and you can strain it. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so quinoa. I'm going to strain this so you can see the stringy things. Those are the little parts of the seed that would grow into the plant. Root system, I believe. So we are going to strain. And you want to rinse. If you're doing quinoa, you want to rinse it off a little bit. Unless you cook the quinoa in stock, then don't rinse. And for those of you who've been to the cooking demos before, I do recommend cooking quinoa with a stock. Let me drain this a little bit more. All right. So we have our quinoa, and it's really hard to see what those little, I don't know if you can see the little stringy things, you can kind of see. That is what you want to get, and it should be chewy, but not crunchy. Okay, let's see. Yes, chewy. If it's crunchy, it's not thoroughly cooked. Okay, so with your tomatoes, so you would set the quinoa aside after you rinse it if you just did it in water. Otherwise, if you cooked it in stock, let it soak. Let's see if there's any questions. Do we need to do anything with bulgur once it has soaked for 15 minutes, or can we just keep it soaking? You can just keep it soaking and it should be okay. You're pretty much going to dump it in with the rest of the salad, and we're going to mix it in. So there will be some leftover marinade. And that's okay, because that's going to be distributed with the rest of the parsley and the mint. Okay, so I am chopping up the tomatoes right now. Now you want your tomato to be chopped. You don't want it to be a mush, right? So if it starts to get mushy, you may have gone a little bit too far. So let me show you. Okay, so just chopped so that way it can bind with the parsley and it has that nice flavor. And you need 2 of these. The type of tomato that you use, the recipe called for vine ripe tomatoes. If they're in season, go for it. You can use Roma, that'll be fine. You can get away with an heirloom tomato. This is pretty flexible. You could experiment with a cherry tomato if you wanted to. It will add a lot of sweetness. But it may be actually absolutely wonderful if you like that. The problem with the cherry tomato is it's not going to have a lot of volume, like the vine ripe will. It may have a lot more seeds because we want to go for a salad that is moist but not soggy. Well balanced. Okay, and for those of you who are following along, how are you doing on chopping your parsley? Are you doing okay? Let's see. No questions so far. It is well worth the effort. Okay, so we have chopped tomatoes. We got our chopped onions. We have the bulgur wheat in the marinade. Next one, cucumber. This is another one that's optional. You'll want to peel your cucumber. Now, if you have, sometimes cucumber seeds can cause digestive problems. You can always core out the center part once you skim this. So I'm going to skim the cucumber real quickly. So I'm just using your standard potato peeler for the cucumber. And you're just skinning it. Ooh, a little piece that's not so pretty. I'm going to leave the seeds in. It doesn't bother my household to have the seeds, but you are welcome to do to core that center. I'm going to show how to do that here in a second. So you have that option, but I'm not going to do it for the entire cucumber. Okay, so sometimes when you peel your cucumber, you might see some less favorably looking sections of it, just depending on how long it's been in the store. So you can see with mine, you want to cut that off. So I'm going to cut down the center of the cucumber. And then any parts that don't look so nice, cut that off. All right, if you are going to de-seed your cucumber, use a spoon. And then with that center part, you're just going to scoop out the seeds. So if your doctor has recommended that you not eat foods with seeds, that is what you're going to want to do. And so it kind of hollows out the cucumber, and then you can use that in the salad. All right, so next you want to chop up your cucumber. Similarly to the tomato, it doesn't have to be finely chopped, but it needs to be small enough so it blends well with the parsley. It's going to be a point where the parsley can cling to and really enhance the flavor. Okay, so let's talk about salt. When we start to put everything together, you're going to add salt and pepper. Salt is optional. You do not need to use it if you don't want to. So if a physician's told you maybe you need to watch your salt, do not like high blood pressure or another thing, you can leave that salt out. The amount of salt that we're going to be adding is 1 teaspoon of salt for the volume of veggies. And it's going to seem like a lot, but most of that's going to go into the salad dressing part, and it's going to collect at the bottom. All right, so I got my cucumber. I went ahead and pre-chopped some red onions. So if you want to add red onion, go ahead and chop that. And I think that we are ready to start assembling. Okay, so we are going to upgrade this tabbouleh salad. I have some canned garbanzo beans, chickpeas. Right? They're already pre-cooked. That's what's the benefit of the garbanzo bean that you buy at the store. And what it will do is it will increase your protein content and fiber and your nutrient profile of the tabbouleh salad. You want to open this up and you want to strain out all the liquid that's in it. And maybe wash it a few times. So I'm going to strain out the chickpeas. Okay, so chickpeas, you can soak them overnight. If you're going to like buy dry chickpeas, soak them overnight, and you want to boil them. You want to pre-cook them prior to adding them to the salad. All right, for those who are who eat cheese, we are going to be adding in a feta. So this is the reduced fat, already pre-crumbled cheese. You can buy the regular feta and just chop it up. It's up to you. And then the amount, so for the garbanzo beans, I'm going to be at, since I'm making 2 different salads, I'm going to use half a can for one, half a can for the other, but you can dump in the whole entire can. These are very, very, very low in calorie, and they're very high in protein, and they have they're low in sugar, and they're very, very high in fiber, so it's great for regulating blood sugar. Okay, for the feta, you can add as little as like a 1/4 cup, or you can dump in the whole packet. But listen to your body and your health recommendations by your licensed professionals. Okay, we're going to start our assembly. So in this bowl, I'm going to do the gluten option. So this is going to be the bulgur wheat option. So you got 2 cups of your chopped parsley. You're going to add that in first. Okay, then you're going to add in your tomato. So I'm only adding in half of the tomato that I have. You would add in more. And then I'm adding in half of the cucumber. All right, next, mint. I'm going to add that in. So I'm adding in half of mine. Green onion. So anywhere between 2 green onions to a whole entire bundle of them. And if you want to add in red onion, that's up to you. It's going to add in a little bit more bite, but be cautious on how much you add. Okay, half of your garbanzo beans to a whole can of your garbanzo beans if you're doing the garbanzo bean upgrade today. Making sure I didn't miss anything. All right, so we have not added in the bulgur yet. You want to have your salt and pepper on hand. All right, so for the bulgur, I just want to show you before I add it in. See how it started to absorb a lot of the moisture? Okay, that's what we want. Now you can boil it, and it's going to be lighter too if you did the boil option. If you did the boil option, you want to strain out any of the water before you add it to the salad. If you did the boiling option, you would do the marinade separate, and then you would just add it in. So you would add in the bulgur wheat, and then you would add in the marinade, because we're going to mix everything together here in a second. All right, so I'm just going to dump all of that in, and I want to make sure I got all of that bulgur wheat. If I'm going to use feta cheese, then I can add in the feta. So anywhere between, I would say, a 1/4 cup to maybe a 1/2 cup of feta. Okay. We're going to stir that in first. So you want to use 2 spoons or 2 forks, whichever you have handy. And we're just going to mix all that in. We have not added salt yet, nor have we added in pepper. I recommend that you taste it first before you season it with salt and pepper. And then also you want to see how much liquid you have. You should be able to have a nice tangy, well-coated mixture there in front of you before you add stuff in. So let me show you from the camera. Okay, so you want to taste it. Taste a little bit. That's good. I'm going to add salt to mine, and I'm going to add pepper. So anywhere between, I would say 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon of salt. And you don't want to add it all in one go. You want to add some, you want to crack some pepper, and then stir it a little bit more, then add a little bit more salt, add a little bit of pepper, and stir it in a little bit more. Now, if it was dry, you would want to make more of the marinade, and you would want to add that in. We all live in different climate zones, right? If your air is drier, you may need a little bit more of the marinade. Now here in Houston, it's so humid right now, we're fine, right? Okay, so you want to taste it again, see how it needs a little bit more salt. I'm going to stay with only 1/2 teaspoon on mine. Okay, there is an option. You can add a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin if you want. That is an option. I'm not doing it today, but it does really help add a nice balance to the potency, kind of earthiness to the mixture. All right, so this is my bulgur wheat tabbouleh salad. I would put saran wrap or something over this, put it in a container, if you're a reusable container, and then you want to chill this, okay? Let's go to the quinoa. So same process for the quinoa. So you're going to start off with dumping in your your parsley. You're going to need to make your marinade. So if you're doing the gluten-free option, you would want to follow the same process for making your marinade, aka salad dressing. So 1/3 cup of olive oil, and then anywhere between 2 tablespoons to a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. Let me squeeze this lemon real quickly. And if this is your first time making it, you're gonna see how the texture works for you, and then the next time you make it, I guarantee you're gonna fall in love with this recipe. The next time you do it, you'll be like, oh, I want to go more, chop it more finely with the parsley, or maybe I want to add more of this, less of that. So that's what's cool about this type of dish, is that there's a lot of flexibility there. Okay, so I'm going to add in not into the salad. That's about, 1/4 cup of lemon juice I'm adding in. I'm going to stir that. Okay, so we got our parsley. We're going to add in onion, anywhere between 2 of those scallions to a 1/4 cup. I'm going to add in some red onion just because I like that. We're going to add in 1/4 of a cup of mint. There it is. You got your tomato, cucumber, if you're using cucumber today. Garbanzo beans. And feta. I'm just eyeballing it. Okay. And you're gonna keep your marinade stirring, add that in. And using your forks. Okay, so in a gluten-free house where, like, or if you have a member in your family who's gluten-free, you would never mix, right? I'm pulling a sacrilege right now. So you would mix that first before you add in your quinoa. Okay, quinoa. You're gonna go anywhere between 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of quinoa, stir that in, and then see how it turns out. So I'm adding that in. Mix it in. So the great thing about quinoa is that it's gonna add in even more protein. And it's very low on the glycemic index with the amount of carbohydrate that it has in. It's very, very rich in fiber, low in carbohydrate. All right, so let me show you what this looks like. So with the quinoa, it's kind of hard to see because I used a black grain quinoa, but it does a very good job in mixing very well. So you want to taste it first and see about salt. All right, it definitely needs salt. And once again, add about 1/4 teaspoon at a time, and then you can add in your pepper. And then you also want to check for moisture. You may have to add in more marinade. That's good. All right, so we have our tabbouleh salad. I would recommend serving this cold. It's going to be more refreshing that way. Pair it up with some iced tea. Use some of those mint leaves, put it in, and a little slice of lemon. It'll be a wonderful meal. You can have this as a main course. Traditionally, though, it's used more as like a pre-meal, right? And you would serve this with hummus and maybe some baba ganoush and some pita bread with those. If you were here over the summer, we made those pickled turnips. Get some of those pickled turnips, put it on the plate, put the tabbouleh on one side, hummus. If you have baba ganoush, the eggplant dish, you can use that, and then you have your pita. You got a whole meal, and it's absolutely delightful. So I'm going to stay on. We are officially done. I'm going to stay on if you have questions, and I hope you enjoy. Pairing with wine. So generally, I'm going to go with, you want to try and use a wine that is from the region where the dish originated. So there's a lot of really good Lebanese wines out there. You can, if you're here in Houston, check out Phoenicia's. They have a whole entire section with Lebanese wines. So check it out. Probably a white would be a nice, refreshing white would be great. All right, so let's see, questions. Let me read off the questions so that way, sorry, I was, do we need to do anything with the book? Okay. Will the cucumber add too much moisture? That's actually a very good question. Typically, if you chop it in advance, a lot of that moisture is going to off into the air. But if you're really worried, if you've got a really, really juicy cucumber, take out the seeds. Take out the seeds and it'll take off a lot of the moisture. That's a really good question. Let's see, next question. How many bundles of parsley are needed to give 2 cups? Okay, so it's about 3 bundles of parsley, 3.5. So I would say it's actually better to get more. I mean, it's really cheap, right? Get more and have that. Parsley lasts a long time in the fridge, and then you can use whatever's left over you can chop it up. You can you know, like when you bake, like let's say you're making baked French fries, not fried French fries, but you know, you chop up your potatoes, mix some chopped parsley on that, and makes it really, really delightful. So you can use that for other things as well. So 3 bundles, 3.5 will get you usually to 2 cups. Let's see what the next questions are. Is anyone else trying the cauliflower option? Oh, that's really cool. So is the cauliflower in place of bulgur wheat? That would work out really well. That would make a good dish. And then that cauliflower is going to add in that a good amount of calcium too. So very much food as medicine with the cauliflower. That gets a lot of really good nutrition. Okay, I have amaranth and quinoa cooked. What proportions do you recommend? Okay, so with the amaranth, so for those of you who don't know, amaranth is a cousin species to quinoa. It's very high in protein, and it's a superfood. It's very rich in the amino acid lysine, right? Helps with muscle repair. What I would do is I'd probably use 2/3 quinoa, 1/3 amaranth. And the reason why is amaranth can get kind of gel-like sometimes when it's around a lot of moisture, so that quinoa adds in that lightness. When they go together, it's really, really good. Let's see. Any other questions so far? Great. This is oh, thank you, Gigi. Thank you. Okay, so any other questions? Feel free to unmute. I'm going to stop the recording. So I want to thank everyone. I'm going to stop the recording. If you have questions and you want to unmute.